Hi, I am Katina Horton, the Love and Freedom Toxic Relationship Recovery Coach. And today's Bible teaching is entitled Relationships with People, Places, Things, and Ideas. 13 ways you know when it's time to let them go. And I'm getting right into the points today. Point number one is when you're literally dodging bullets at work. That's point number one, when you are literally dodging bullets at work. Every time you go into work, there's one employee and or several employees plotting against you, right? It started with the he say, she said, that kind of little petty childish stuff, right? Then it turned on to the dirty looks. Their countenance changed, right? Then it got ghetto. They're literally throwing things at you, shooting at you as you're leaving the parking lot, trying to physically harm you by strangling you and fighting you, physically fighting you at work, right? In the bathroom, in the hallway, etc. You file several police reports and nothing seems to be getting done. It's time to let them go. David kept going back to Saul because there was a longing in his heart for a father figure and also for brothers who loved him, right? And he ended up being able to get that brotherly relationship through Saul's son, Jonathan, right? However, even though Saul served as his spiritual father temporarily, right? Saul was narcissistic and he wanted to kill David after suffering narcissistic injury. When those ladies started singing about how many thousands Saul had killed compared to the tens of thousands that David had killed, right? David had to dodge getting killed by a spear, okay, 3 times in Saul's presence. And then he was on the run going from cave to cave, right? Cave to cave, stronghold to stronghold, field to field, and writing poetry and all kind of psalms in between this entire madness that was going on, right? Trying to escape from the clutches of Saul and his men, right? It took a while for him to have a come to Jesus moment to realize this man is not out for my own good. And at one point in time, like I said, he represented a spiritual father to David, right? But that time was short-lived. It was gone. And a lot of times we're pressing on and trying to continue in seasons that the Lord has already told us, you've been going around this mountain too long. This season is over. Open the door, walk out. This is it, right? This is a done deal. But we try to keep on keeping on, so to speak, right? Keeping it going when God said, I'm done, right? And instead of us saying, I cannot be connected, right, to trauma and being trauma bonded and soul tied to drama, this narcissistic person is trying to kill me. You just keep going. David had a come to Jesus moment and realized that I can no longer be connected to this trauma bonding, this soul tie with this individual who's serving as a spiritual father to me, who's literally trying to kill me. I got to go, right? And so we think we can love the brokenness and badness out of people. That's impossible. We think that even with our bosses, right? We can only do our part. And when we start going over into that lane, right? Instead of driving in the lane we're in and taking care of our own junk, we start driving in somebody else's lane. We end up being in trouble, right? And in scripture, it says, later in Saul's house, David was playing the harp. Saul was there with his spear in his hand. Then an evil spirit from the Lord came on Saul. Saul threw his spear at David and tried to pin him to the wall. David jumped out of the way so that the spear missed him and stuck in the wall. That night, David ran away. Saul sent men to watch David's house. They stayed there all night. They were waiting to kill David in the morning, but David's wife, Michal, warned him. She said, you must run away tonight and save your life. If you don't, you will be killed tomorrow. Then Michal let David down out of a window, and he escaped and ran away. Michal took the household god, put clothes on it, and put goat's hair on its head. Then she put the statue in the bed. Saul sent messengers to take David prisoner. But Michal said, David is sick. She came up with an alibi for him, basically. The men went and told Saul. but he sent the messengers back to see David. Saul told these men, bring David to me. I guess he figured, like, I want to see for myself. Bring him lying on his bed if you must, even if it kills him. He like, if you need to bring him on the bed, bring him here, bring him to me. I want to see him, right? I'm going to see this sick person, right? I'm ready to kill him. He had had enough. The messengers went to David's house. They went inside to get him, but they only saw it was a statue and that his hair was only goat's hair. So Michael had really protected him in this situation. Saul said to Michael, why did you trick me like this? You let my enemy escape and now he is gone. And then over in 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter, and then we're going through from the 8th through, the 7th. Through the 17 verses, it says, as they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. Whenever we got a song, a poem, or just some words where we're comparing somebody else's figures to another person, somebody's going to be offended, right? Saul was very angry, and I'm still reading the scripture. This refrain displeased him greatly. They've credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he have but the kingdom? So he's like, okay, so what else can be his? If they just singing this song, what else is going to happen? What else are they going to credit to him, right? He had took it a whole nother level, as they say. And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcibly on Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him twice. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David, but had departed from Saul. You know, it's a bad thing when you are so intent on destroying somebody, you end up with this murderous spirit in you that's going to keep going and keep going and keep going until the job is done. And it reminds me of the movie The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston. Her sister, little did she know, had hired someone because of that toxic envy and jealousy. She had hired someone to kill Whitney Houston. And even with Kevin Costner, he tried to work and diffuse the situation and tried to eliminate that. But what had happened, everything her sister had set into motion, it was going to keep on. They were going to keep on trying to keep on trying to keep on trying until they had killed Whitney Houston. That was the plan. But the sister accidentally ended up being killed. And that's what happens when you hire a hitman. Once they've been paid, they're not going to stop until they've gotten the job done. Saul was his own hitman for David, right? And it says, so he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men. And David led the troops in their campaigns. So he figured, all I got to do is just get David away from me, to get him out of sight. Like the little kids with children, is out of sight, out of mind. And then that's going to stop it. If you haven't done your work of your undealt with brokenness, your unresolved trauma, and dealt with all your vulnerabilities, what's going to happen? You're still going to be the same person. New house, new marriage, new man, new vacation home, right? All of that, right? More children, and you're still the same person. You're going to be following the same patterns of behavior, sadly, right? And then in verse 14 through 17 of 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter, it says, and everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. So the whole while, while Saul was trying to get David, the Lord just kept on giving him success, right? When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David. Why did they love him? They loved David because what? He walked in the feet of humility. When we walk humbly instead of walking arrogantly, and we're allowing God to use us, right? And then that's why David ended up being called a man after God's own heart. We become men and women after God's own heart when we are walking spiritually, and we're walking by the spirit and not by the flesh, right? And those two are always warring against each other. It says, right? Saul said to David, here's my older daughter, Merab. I'll give you to her in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord. For Saul said to himself, I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that. So he was figuring, okay, I couldn't get him those 3 times with my spear, but guess what? I'm going to send him over here to the army, and the Philistines are going to kill him, right? That's what Saul had in mind. Number 2, the second way that you know you need to let them go. when the only thing you have in common is talking about the old sinful life you had. You know, you get together with old friends, and it's good to go over memories. It's always good to do that. You talk about the old time, the good old time, the good old days. You know what I'm saying? When you were with all these different men at one time. You talk about the times that you beat up so and so, right? When you were part of the Mean Girls Club, right? You talk about the times where you were packing with the gun and several people got shot and injured, perhaps, and you didn't go to jail. But how long should that go on? Right? How long should we be doing that? How long? Right? And when the focus changes from always talking about the sinful life that we had, you know, memories is one thing, but the focus turns on all of the sinful life rather than your current life, your growth and healing and moving forward and the vision and destiny that you're trying to reach, right? Even with savoring the memories, when that focus is on all of the sinful lifestyle, a lot of times people will pull you back. They'll pull you back into 1973. They'll pull you back into 1997. They'll pull you back into 2007. Remember when you did that? Remember, and you used to drink and smoke and get high and all of that. Remember that? And, you know, used to take drugs, and then you're laughing and talking with them about that. All of that used to be you. And we never want to get to the point that we're not humble enough to realize that, right? At the same time, when we start with these memories, these thoughts always have emotions attached to them. And then those emotions set us up for a disaster, right? And then in 1 John 2:16, it tells us about the three things we're always going to struggle with in life and living in this world. A lot of times we get to talking about the old times and all of this stuff, and that time needs to be long gone. That door needs to be closed. It says, for everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world, right? And so when the only thing that you could talk about is the good old times, how you were sticking people up, robbing people, robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking advantage of people, this in and out of bed with this person, that person, you set yourself up to be going back there and staying there instead of talking about building yourself up, building other people up, etc., right? In terms of your mind, body, soul, and spirit. Memories become toxic after a while. Girl, I remember I put my feet in the sand and was relaxing in the water. And then I went on vacation with him, and we were able to spend $10,000, $20,000. I remember we ate fish and we had all of this salmon, and we had salad, and we had garlic bread and all of that. But you were in an abusive relationship. You were a slave, right? You were calling the police every other week. You had restraining orders, all of that, right? But you're reflecting on all of this different stuff and all of the music that you listened to at that time. You're taking yourself back. It's time to let them go. Number 3, this is the third one that we're going to go over today, the third and final one. You know it's time to let them go when you're fighting over a man. Anytime you got to the point where you're fighting with another woman over a man, right? That's the narcissistic individual's dream. That's his dream, to sit back and watch this theater production that he has produced and directed and hoping it'll come to fruition. You got 2 or more women fighting over him, his wife and his side chicks, his girlfriends and the side chicks from work, who started off in the same position that you did, but then ended up being disarmed, trauma bonded, and soul tied, right? Attacking each other, right? To get information from them and he'd attack them to get information from them that he never should have received in the first place, right? Rachel and Leah were 2 sisters who were never able to support each other because they were fighting over Jacob, over his approval, over having babies, over having sex with him. It was just a sad situation that never got better. And the scripture says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren, and Leah conceived and bare a son. And she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time my husband will be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi, naming each and every baby she had after all of the trauma and drama she was going through with Jacob, because he did not love her, right? And then further down it says, and Reuben went into the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of my son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, it's a small matter that thou hast taken my husband. And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I've hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I was given to I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. So anytime you are finding yourself fighting with another woman over a man, you know it's time to let him go. Tomorrow, I will go into part 2 of this series. That was the first 3 of the 13 ways you know when it's time to let them go. And what are you letting go? You're letting go to people, places, things, and ideas that are no longer serving you. Remember, you are enough. Reclaim your power, soul, and identity. And then I want you to reclaim the power, soul, and identity of your callings. Grab your keys to the kingdom and get your inheritance. I love you and be blessed. Until next time.